Welcome back to the Morning Blend. Many Americans have at one time been prescribed an opioid, which is medication, but many don't realize the potential danger. So joining us to help you have an important conversation with your doctor is David Calabrese, a member of the Internal Task Force at UnitedHealth Group. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So just so that people understand, I think most people know, but opioids are pain medications, and very often people are prescribed them after they have surgery, for example, right?
Correct.
Okay, so let's talk about the conversation that people should have with their doctor. How should it start if you're prescribed an opioid?
Certainly. So I think the most important thing is that people not be intimidated in terms of that conversation with their physician. And the best way to initiate a conversation is to ask questions. So if your doctor is going to prescribe a pain reliever, you want to understand, is this an opioid drug? If it is an opioid drug, how should I utilize it? What are some of the risks? Unlike other medications like antibiotics that need to be taken, at a certain interval throughout the day and for an extended period of time, and you have to complete taking all the medication, that's not the case with opioids. So you want to make sure that you minimize exposure, still providing obviously the pain relief that's necessary. You also want to advise your doctor as to other medications that you might be taking that may have been prescribed by another physician that could potentially interact with the opioid and make it that much more dangerous, if used together.
Are people sometimes prescribed an opioid, but they don't know that that's what it is?
Yeah, very much so, and that's why these questions are critical. And it's also important to understand that there are alternatives. If it's a short-term acute type of situation, let's say, your child is having wisdom teeth extracted, or you or your child have had a sports-related injury. Oftentimes those types of ailments don't necessarily require the potency of an opioid medication, and there are alternatives that should be considered.
So it's probably a good idea to just ask. And if your doctor says, I'm going to put you on an opioid,
correct,
say, first confirm that it is one or ask if it is, but then say, are there other things I could be taking that could also help minimize the pain?
Correct. And there are plenty of options, both prescription and over-the-counter. Things like over-the-counter ibuprofen, which is commonly sold as Advil or Motrin, over-the-counter naproxen, which is another anti-inflammatory drug, very good one, sold as Aleve, over-the-counter acetaminophen, which is commonly sold as Tylenol. Oftentimes these medications, when dosed appropriately, can be just as effective, if not more effective than the opioid, and a lot safer in terms of their usage.
What are some common names of drugs that have opioids in them?
Yeah, so the most commonly ones that are prescribed today are drugs like oxycodone, which is the active ingredient in medications like Percocet and Percodan. It's also the active ingredient in the longer-acting, more potent OxyContin. Hydrocodone is another one, which is the active ingredient in drugs like Vicodin, Lorco, Lortab, Norco. And then you have codeine derivatives like Tylenol with codeine, which are often prescribed as well for short-term acute pain.
I think you made a great point that if you have them and you're prescribed them, it's not like other medications like an antibiotic, for example, where you have to finish the course of medication in order for it to be effective. You really just want to use it as little as possible to get you through that acute pain.
That's correct, and that's what recommendations are from our national bodies like the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Lowest dose possible, shortest duration possible.
All right, let's talk about if you have some opioids, you have some pills remaining, you've taken them for a little while, you've got some left over that you're not planning to take. How should you safely dispose of them? Because that's another problem, is just keeping them around, right?
Right, that's a huge problem, and that's where we as a society, I think, need to step up. There's been surveys that have suggested that 60% of U.S. households actually store leftover opioids, oftentimes in unsecure locations like a medicine cabinet, where they can be easily accessed by children, by young adults, folks visiting the home. We need to do our best to get rid of those medications. And the best way to do so is, you can talk to your local pharmacies. Oftentimes the larger chains have kiosks where you can dispose of these medications. At the end of the month is something called Drug Take Back Day, which is being sponsored by the DEA, where you can go on their website and find out, what are some locations in my community where I can drop these medications off. You can talk to your local police department, your Department of Public Works. All of those will provide valid resources for that information.
Where can people go for more information? What site do you suggest?
Yeah, I encourage folks to go to the DEA website, the CDC website, and often, to visit our own website at optum.com/opiate epidemic for some very good information on the epidemic, the drugs themselves, how to best manage pain, and a variety of other valid resources that would be extremely helpful.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. It's important information for us to be able to share with our viewers, and we appreciate it.
We appreciate your time as well. Thanks for the attention drawn to this important topic.
Absolutely. Thanks again.